there and rotations and that kind of stuff. I don't know when we get that information, and that's what we're dying so desperately to find out.
Yeah, I got to say, it's going to get old real quick talking to these players. And, it's been fine this week talking to offense and defense, but it's going to get old like next week and then the week after where you're talking pretty much about the same points. But, luckily there are like scrimmages like Saturday where we can talk about some new stuff, like how some of these guys looked and all that. But, yeah, the countdown's getting close. I feel like when you get to like the 10-day and under mark, it's really going to be like, oh, my gosh.
Well, and at least at that point in time, there's other football things to kind of supplement that. Like tonight, we actually do start NFL preseason. I believe the Panthers are actually playing their first preseason game coming up tonight. I'll double check on that. But at least when you have other football stuff, that kind of makes it a little bit, easier than opposed to, for the past week or so where there's really not been anything. We're just kind of talking about what's going on at camp. Where, again, you guys only get to see a very small window of what actually happens at practice. So, we can't delve too much into the kick return and punt return competition because that's only a small part of what we're trying to figure out with this team.
Exactly. And just to double check, the Panthers are playing at New England tonight.
Okay.
And they get the Jets, and then I believe they end the preseason going to Buffalo. So
a little AFC East swing there.
Yep, the little AFC East tour. But yeah, man, with the scrimmage on Saturday, I know we'll jump into it here. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways you can kind of look at this. I think you just want to make sure everyone gets out of there healthy first off. You don't want any injuries or anything. But I think for those guys that are coming off injuries like Mo Kaba and Rocket Sanders and such, you want to make sure that they are looking good out there. Like, how do they look in their first real action since last season? So I think, for Kaba especially, who hasn't played since week 1 last year. So I think getting those guys and making sure, they're knocking some of the rust off before week 1, this is a great opportunity to do so. And then it's also a great opportunity for like guys like Lenore Sellers and Robbie Ashford to kind of show what they've been learning this this fall and summer and put it to use in a game situation.
There's certainly a line you have to draw when, as you mentioned, guys that have been coming back from injuries like Rocket Sanders, like Mo Kaba, like you want them to get out there and get reps in and get back up to that game type speed, but you also don't want to push the limits of what they're doing and risk getting them hurt again. As we talked about this yesterday with Rocket Sanders in game number 1. We're again Old Dominion. You shouldn't need Rocket Sanders to go out there and run for 200 yards to win you the game. So it's more like, all right, let's give him 6, 8, maybe 10 carries at most. Let him get his feet wet a little bit and then put him on the shelf, get ready for Kentucky in week number 2 because, again, you don't want to risk injuring him again. Yeah,
and it'll definitely be a pitch count in that first game. I can't see it being any other way. I mean, look, he might feel 100% right now. It might be the same deal with Mo Kaba. I know yesterday he did say, and we'll get into him, but I know he did say yesterday he's feeling 100%. Despite how these guys feel, these coaches are smart enough, and Shane Beamer is smart enough to know that, it's not the right move to go play them, 60, 70 snaps right away. You got to keep them on a pitch count, like I said, and not try to overuse them right away because you're going to need them down the stretch. So, the scrimmage, though, like I said, will be a real good test of where these guys are at, physically speaking.
And, of course, you want nobody to get hurt in the scrimmage, whether it be guys that have been injured before, guys that aren't on your injury radar. You just make sure you can get through it healthy and everybody's okay as we go into another week of camp. And then you ask the question of, okay, who can make an impact? And what does an impact look like? That's such a tough question to ask because the goal of a scrimmage is to get everybody out there, to get everybody in game situations, rotate through the 1s and the 2s and stuff like that. So when you have 1 versus 1 on defense, like who can step up and make a play at wide receiver, at offensive line, at defensive line, like there's so many things that we're looking at here trying to nail down what it's going to look like. Hopefully they figure something out this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it's not going to be, fully live in terms of hitting the quarterback and stuff.
Oh, probably not.
And I'm sure there's going to be some guys in, like blue pennies and stuff where they're non-contact or something. So it's not going to be – it's the closest thing we've got to the real thing. But at the same time, it's also like there's so many like asterisks and limitations on what goes on. But from what we could potentially see or hear about – I think I'm interested to see how the line protects up front. Obviously sacks really don't matter in this sort of thing, but I think, they've got a lot of good guys that could be potential starters this year. How do they block for Lenore Sellers or Robbie Ashford? And then, who wins that wide receiver DB battle? I know a lot of guys yesterday on the defense were asked about how do you cover Nick Harbor, and it's just kind of like you just got to hope for the best. So
Sure.
I'm interested to see how that looks, but also just how everyone coming back and all the new faces coming in look, because again, this is their first time playing together as a team, so to say.
And there's going to be multiple scrimmages leading up to the start of the season. So what happens this Saturday does not determine, oh, well, this guy's going to be the starter, this guy's not going to be the starter. But this is the opportunity to separate yourself. This is the opportunity to put yourself maybe a couple steps ahead at one of the offensive line spots, at that cornerback spot that we've been wondering about, where there are so many guys vying for that one position. What you do in this game type scenario, and again, there's going to be referees out there. It's going to be running like a real game would be, not like a, just a session in practice. So how do you handle that? And for these young guys, how do you handle being in the stadium? I know there's not going to be 80,000 people there, but it's different practicing on an open field or practicing the indoor facility and practicing where you're going to be playing the games. How do you handle that? Do you play differently? Do you act differently when you're out there? And, what does that mean for the season coming up? So, again, it's an opportunity for you to separate yourself from the rest of the pack for whatever position you're vying for.
Yeah, man, that's got to be so cool for those guys that haven't really gotten the chance to play out there yet. And, even the new guys coming in from the transfer portal and stuff, like, it's going to be so cool for them to be in there, despite there not being 80,000 people in there. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. There's got to be some nerves that definitely go into it. And, I'm interested to see how these guys handle it. Because, again, it's the pre-show for the main event that comes in a few weeks. And so, while it's still a few weeks away, this is a great opportunity for some guys to make an impact, and really, like I said, the first opportunity for guys to leave their mark and, start creating some separation in those position battles that we talk about.
And I believe, do we hear from Beamer afterwards on Saturday?
So, yeah, we'll hear from him. I think the scrimmage is roughly around like 11:30, and again, that's closed to the public, so no fans or anything or media. But I believe we talked to Beamer sometime around 2:30 on Saturday. So.
Okay. And again, I don't think he's going to give anything away necessarily, but that's kind of one of those things where I think we're really going to have to read between the lines of what he either says or doesn't say about certain guys, or guys that he might bring up that he's not prompted about, that may have had good scrimmages and stuff like that. As we, again, for the next 23 days, try and piece together what this entire team is going to look like, quite frankly, because, again, so many open competitions at multiple spots.
Yeah, and you're totally right. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to say, but I think you also want to make sure that you're checking off the boxes in terms of, okay, how did so-and-so look? How did Mo Cobb's knee hold up? How did Rocket Sanders look with the first time back out from the shoulder injury? All those sort of things, and other guys that have been hurt too. I think that's probably the main thing. And then also maybe trying to get a little, inside on some of these position battles. But again, you don't want to give away all your big secrets, and I totally can understand that.
Yeah, so again, that's coming up on Saturday, and when's the next time you guys get to view a session?
I believe it's Sunday.
Okay.
So, yeah, the day right after the scrimmage.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, well, and with that potentially could affect who's with what area if you guys do get to see actual offensive and defensive drills come Sunday. But again, we'll get to that when we do end up getting there. Reminder, we are still running our greatest moments for Gamecock Sports since the year 2000 on our Twitter page at 1075 The Game. You can go on there and vote for the 4 winners from last week that we took and put into a new poll. So running that for the rest of this week, and then we're going to crown an overall winner coming up on Monday. Jay's going to be broadcasting live from Columbia Craft at 520 Green Street down in the Vista, and he'll be talking all about the overall winner of the greatest Gamecock moment in sports since the year 2000. We'll continue on with the camp conversation, talk about guys that maybe are flying under the radar a little bit. Who are we not talking enough about as we get closer to the start of the 2024 season? He's Jack Veltri from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head on your Thursday on The Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri from Gamecock Central, along with you on your Thursday here on the game as we navigate through the waters that are fall camp for the Gamecocks, getting closer to the start of the 2024 season. We've talked about so many different names on this team because of, as we've talked about many times, the open competition at various spots. But we can't talk about everyone. And you posed the question to me yesterday, who are some guys that might be kind of flying under the radar that we're not talking enough about as we get closer to the start of the year?
You know, there's definitely it's an interesting discussion to have because again, there's so much depth and competition at every position that there are a lot of guys competing for spots, and there's definitely some that we're talking about a lot, but there's also others we're not talking about probably as much. A few that come to mind for me, I feel like Amari Huggins-Bruce, I feel like is one at wide receiver that probably doesn't get talked about enough as a transfer compared to the others. I mean, you look at his stats from Louisville last year. I mean, 20 receptions, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, averages 15.6 yards per catch. So that's a pretty good stat right there. And I feel like he could be someone, despite maybe being a little undersized. He's got some speed, a little shifty, quick. I feel like that kind of plays to the strengths for him.
And if I remember correctly, I don't think we heard a ton about him in spring either, which was, again, surprising as he came in here with Jared Brown, with Gage Larvadain, 3 guys with very similar skill sets. They were wondering how that was going to filter out, but Huggins-Bruce was the one that we didn't hear as much about compared to like a Larvadain through the springtime.
Yeah, and this is a guy that has only 1 year of eligibility left. He's a Dillon, South Carolina native, so I think this could be a really strong year for him. I think he reminds me a little bit of like the Marion Brown type, and I think he could definitely be someone that we need to keep an eye on here.
I'll stick with offense. What about DJ Braswell? This running back room has been completely flipped from where it was a season ago, and we know Rocket Sanders is going to be the bell cow back as long as he is healthy, and Oscar Adaway should get some decent playing time. And from then on, we don't really know what 3 through whatever is going to look like. But DJ Braswell is somebody that was in a less than advantageous situation a year ago. They had to burn his red shirt because of Juju McDowell's injury, so he ended up playing in too many games last year to be able to preserve that. But he's somebody that got some experience playing in the SEC, through that great block for Spencer
Kentucky,
Rattler to be able to throw the touchdown pass against Kentucky to Xavier Legette to win the game. So he's somebody that, you can look at his stats and they don't really jump off the page at you, but his mechanics as a running back, particularly when it comes to pass blocking, are very good, and that is very valuable, in any kind of offense, especially in the SEC. So we don't really know how he's going to factor into this, but he's somebody that I feel like we just have not spent a lot of time talking about at this point, throughout the entirety of the offseason, just because I guess kind of gets lost in the shuffle with everybody else.
It definitely does. And look, he's probably, when you look at the depth chart, probably like the 4th or 5th guy. And I don't know how much playing time he's going to see this year, but if South Carolina, with injuries and stuff, if they can kind of divvy it up a little bit to where these guys are getting touches still, I mean, you're going to have to rotate at running back a little bit in the early part of the season. Maybe if he gets a chance in like Old Dominion or something, or Kentucky, and he shines, I mean, then you move him up in on the slot, but we'll have to see what happens.
Let's look at some other guys on here. I also look at a guy like Desmond Umeozulu at the edge spot, and again, kind of similar to running back. It's an edge room that's been completely revamped, where you bring back Gilbert Edmond, you bring in Kyle Kennard, guys like that. Dylan Stewart obviously coming in as a true freshman. It's easy to forget, like Des U was kind of the talk of this room going into last season, 4-star guy coming out of the DMV that a lot of people were certainly excited about, and like everybody else in the edge room, outside of like Jordan Strawn, didn't do a whole lot. But that doesn't mean that he can't step up and be a big contributor this year. Yeah,
and I think, he is definitely someone that, like you said, has the accolades coming out of high school and stuff. I think he's definitely someone that I thought was going to be really impactful for this team last year. Obviously wasn't that much of the case, but I think this year, with what the defense could look like, I think getting guys in there and rotating them around and having that depth, I think he could definitely be someone that we need to keep an eye on. But another one, keeping the note on defense here, I think
freshman that we thought maybe could have been in the mix a season ago, and now has been a conversation point a lot of this offseason that he's in there with Judge Collier, Zabari Sandy, Emory Floyd, all competing for Jalou Solomon, all competing for that final cornerback spot. And again, when that official announcement comes out, we don't know, but he's somebody that I think a lot of people have talked about maybe even having an advantage in that area.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I think probably some of the other guys that at least I feel like we should keep an eye on, offensive line. Lonnie Teasley did say a few weeks ago to me that, they feel like, if you're in the 2 deep, you're, working as a starter essentially. So that he feels like they got 10 starters on that line. And 2 guys that I definitely do expect to, help out on that front are probably Torricelli Simpkins III and Kamar Bell. I feel, those are both transfer offensive linemen, and they bring a lot of experience, and I feel like they could be those guys up front that, if your regular guys from last year that we're accustomed to seeing aren't starting, I feel like those would be some of the options that would be the potential guys to start moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And when you talk about a guy like Torricelli Simpkins, I know a lot of people look at the fact that, he's coming over from North Carolina Central and say, oh, well, what's the transition going to be the SEC like? Well, he's just played a lot of football. And yes, there is going to be a jump in competition level, but he's somebody with the experience that he has and the versatility on the offensive line that should be able to be a serious factor into one of those starting spots.
Oh, definitely. And you look at a guy like Kamar Bell, and look, he has got a lot of college football experience under his belt, at the D1 level, at the FBS level, and over 3 seasons he has started 29 games, played in 33. So he's one of the more experienced guys on this line that I don't feel like we talk about enough, especially as a transfer. And Chris Clark wrote a story kind of providing the inspiration for this discussion that we're having here. But he did say that, Kamar had first-team reps back in the spring, and that's been the case in the preseason as well. So that is definitely someone that we should be keeping an eye on here.
And I'll throw another one out here, and this is somebody else that Chris mentioned in his story that you can read about all on Gamecock Central, is Monkel Goodwine on the defensive line. Now, yes, when you have a transfer from Alabama, he is going to garner a lot of attention, but I think a lot of people, I don't say have been put off, but have been hesitant because he didn't really do anything at Alabama, because he was behind a lot of other 4 and 5 stars in his time there, and he just had not gotten his right opportunity just yet. But when we looked at what he did, like in the spring game, you could see that, like, okay, this guy, there's a reason this guy was so highly touted coming out of high school. Got a sack in that game, made some other plays there. Like, you can see the groundwork of him potentially being a dude on this defensive line. And again, you got a lot of bodies in the room there, so it's going to be rotation. It's not like he's going to be out there for 95% of the snaps or anything like that. But when he's on the field, I think he's somebody that we could watch for maybe making some big plays.
If anyone's actually questioning what this guy could be, just trust the fact that Nick Saban wanted him. I think that's
a good endorsement.
That speaks volumes to the fact that, like, if you're going to trust anyone's opinion in college football,
sure,
it should probably be his. But yeah, no, I think Monkel could definitely be a guy that could be big moving forward. They got a lot of guys on the D line, a lot of returnees, a lot of incoming guys, but I feel like Monkel, one of those guys that we are definitely not talking about enough.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that entire defensive line room is so experienced with guys, coming from all over. And obviously you have, TJ Sanders and Boogie and Nick Barrett and guys like that, Tonka, all making their return for another year. So that should be one of the strongest groups in the entire team. And again, we'll see what kind of impact Monkel Goodwine can make. I'll throw one more in there. Preston and I were talking about this morning because we have the kicking competition going on as well. I feel like that's not getting enough conversation either, and how vitally important that is. Mitch Jeter was very clutch. He was very efficient, 23 of 25 field goals in the past 2 seasons. He's gone now. You don't know what you have. You have 2 guys that have been on the roster for multiple years that have not kicked in high-pressure situations. So not only do you have to win the job in camp, but you also have to go out there and actually perform, because there's a difference between kicking at the practice facility and kicking in front of 80,000 people on a Saturday. Like, I can't definitively sit here and tell you I know which one of those guys is going to be better at that. We're going to have to wait and see.
Man, no, Gamecock fans have definitely had it good for, like, ever now with guys kicking. You have, like you said, Mitch Jeter, Parker White, Elliott Fry. The list goes on and on of big-name guys that they've had at kicker. And, this year it's like you got 2 I don't want to call them question marks, but two guys that have patiently waited their turn, William Joyce and Alex Herrera. And, Alex is a sixth-year senior.
Sure.
William Joyce, I believe, is a red shirt. He's definitely a red shirt.
I believe he's a junior.
Red shirt junior. So he's still got some time left. But I don't know. This battle seems like it's kind of going. We've heard from both guys now.
Sure.
And it's definitely tough because, they're good friends and they used to live next to each other. But I definitely think this is something that we're not going to find out about until probably like day or two before game day. And it's going to be, it really could just go either way. I couldn't tell you who's going to win.
It's truly the competition that is definitely flying under the radar. We'll come back. We'll hit this list. Bill Connolly putting out the 25 most important players to the college football playoff race in 2024. Dive into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri from Gamecock Central along with you on your Thursday on The Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point, Tyler Head, Jack Veltri from Gamecock Central along with you on this Thursday. Real quick, I want to remind you the Ultimate Season Ticket Giveaway is back on 1075thegame.com. Just go online and register for your chance to win tickets to every home football game, every home baseball game, and every home men and women's basketball game for the upcoming sports calendar year. We're going to take our 3 finalists out to our summer golf event at Charwood Golf Club at the end of the month and crown our one true winner. There again, the Ultimate Season Ticket Giveaway 2.0 on 1075thegame.com. So as I mentioned a moment ago, Bill Connolly puts out this list on ESPN yesterday. He's like the king of lists when it comes to college football this time of year. There's like a new one every day. 25 most important players in 2024's college football playoff race. Now, he divided this up into multiple tiers. You got transcendent stars, spoiler quarterbacks, non-transfer quarterbacks, who needs to break through, ready for a big leap, and contender quarterbacks. And it's interesting some of the teams that are in the mix for this. Starting off with number 25, he puts Travis Hunter in Colorado as a pure transcendent potential. Now, he does note in there in the first sentence, he's not expecting Colorado to be in the national championship race. But when you have a guy that is crazy talented and has the amount of skill that Travis Hunter has, I guess you never truly know.
You know, I'm glad that the first sentence was there to clarify, because I'm rolling my eyes just seeing that, because it's Colorado. It's like they had such a bad year last year, and they get the expectations through the roof because of Dion and stuff. But there's no denying Travis Hunter's talent. That's not what I'm talking about here. Like, Travis Hunter is a transcendent type player.
Sure.
The fact that he's able to do both wide receiver and DB as efficiently as he does, it's otherworldly. And
sure.
I wish he were on a team. Colorado can be good, but not championship contender. I wish he were on a team like Alabama or something. Someone that would be so much better because of him, and that would make the difference between. It's like making a big trade at the trade deadline with like MLB or NFL. You get a guy like that on your team, you're that much better. So, I mean, I definitely understand why he's on this list. He should be, but it's just, it's Colorado. I don't think they're going to be very good this year.
So, go a little bit further down. Got Luther Burden at number 22, wide receiver from Missouri. And it's so, I think he's going to be one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in all of college football. And the weight that he carries for that offense. Now, yes, last year they had Cody Schrader, Brady Cook, very efficient quarterback, not a superstar, but very efficient. But Luther Burden is what really kind of stirs the drink when it comes to Missouri's offense, to where if they didn't have him this year, I think most of us will look at that and say, maybe they'll win 7 or 8 games. But the fact that he's on that offense once again elevates them to being in the conversation of maybe being a dark horse for the playoffs.
This is just me, and maybe I'm thinking about this from a national perspective. So when I say this, it's not like, from an SEC, South Carolina, we know this guy perspective. I think he's so slept on. The dude is so nasty out there. He is a really, really, really good player. And I've enjoyed watching just how good he's been for Missouri over the years. I mean, he's been doing this for a while now. I think he's made a big impact since I believe he was a freshman. So, this is nothing new. And I think with you mentioned, I think Cody Schrader's not there anymore, right? So, Brady Cook's back. Missouri's coming off a good year, a great year actually, and getting a guy like Burden back is massive. I know they got some other good receivers in that room, but he's the guy. And so I feel like this offense will probably go as far as him and Brady Cook take it. And if that connection is sizzling like it was last year, if not better, I think Missouri just in general gets slept on still. I think the Tigers can definitely get back to that point of where they were last year. And, with the 12-team playoff, they could be a team that gets in for sure.
We'll jump down a couple notches here. We'll go to number 8. This is in the quarterbacks with potential game-changing leap in them. They got Cam Ward at Miami. Now, in terms of the lottery of quarterbacks available in the transfer portal this offseason, I think Cam Ward was probably number 1 on a lot of people's list. This is a guy that could have gone on and played in the NFL if he wanted to. He had so much, so many good numbers in his time at Washington State, balled out completely at Incarnate Word before he got there. This guy has so much raw potential and so much raw skill that, he is and Miami as a whole are projected to be one of the best teams in the ACC. That, again, all you got to do is win the conference, which I know that's easier said than done. But should they win the conference, you're in the college football playoff.
It's nice talking about Miami potentially being good again. And again, I think they should have been better than what they finished with last year. They had a good start to the year. Things happened, and it wasn't a great year. But you get that quarterback, that guy that can be the difference maker this year, and that's what we talk about with this list. Guys that are going to be the difference between winning and losing, and Cam Ward can definitely be that dude. Now, with Miami's schedule, I mean, it's definitely not easy. For non-con, you have to make a trip to Gainesville, and then you go to South Florida, which obviously South Florida gave Bama problems last year, so
right.
Wouldn't be hard to believe if they gave Miami issues. But also, you're making a West Coast trip to Cal, and then you go right after that to Louisville, and then you got Florida State after that. So I think having Cam Ward, a guy that has been there, done that at Washington State and Incarnate Wood, just like you said, I don't see why this wouldn't work. It really feels like a match made in heaven, bringing those two, things together. And I really do feel like Cam Ward, if given the right tools and the keys to the car with the offensive system, it can really work out good for both parties.
The final category here is new starting quarterbacks for potential contenders. Dillon Gabriel at number 3 going out there to Oregon from Oklahoma. Obviously, Bo Nix wrapped up his college career this past season, helping lead Oregon to an appearance in the Pac-12 championship game. But, you're replacing him with somebody that is, I would say, just as efficient and just as experienced as Bo Nix was, because this is a guy that's been around for a very long time in the college football game, and Dillon Gabriel that should be able to plug right into that offense that they're running out there and be just as, if not maybe more successful than what Bo Nix was.
It's crazy that he's been around. Like this first line, Gabriel threw his first collegiate pass almost 5 years ago.
Crazy.
That's crazy. Who was I don't want to go off topic here. Who was the quarterback at UCF when they, I guess before Gabriel?
Was it Mackenzie Milton?
That's who it was. Because he got UCF to the Peach Bowl, right? And then he gets hurt in the South Florida game. I think I can't remember what he had a bad knee injury though.
Yeah. So he was at UCF from 2016 to 2020, then transferred to Florida State in 2021. So, when he got hurt, Dillon Gabriel took over from him.
Isn't that crazy?
I know, it's insane.
That's a taking over for a legend right there. But, with Dillon Gabriel, I mean, look, this is, his third stop now. He's started out UCF, had really good numbers there, helped those teams, become what they are now, and then goes to Oklahoma. Obviously had some really good numbers there. Otherwise, he wouldn't be at Oregon. Now, like you said, he's taken over after Bo Nix, who had a really Heisman-worthy season, in my opinion, last year. And I definitely think that Oregon, a lot of what they do this year depends on him. They did lose some playmakers on the outside at receiver, but obviously they're going to replenish like all great teams do with more 4 and 5 stars and transfers. So I don't think this Oregon offense is going to miss a beat at all. But again, it's a different play style probably compared to Bo Nix, especially being a left-handed quarterback and stuff. But definitely would expect him to be like that guy for this team.
And the last one at the top of the list, Will Howard at Ohio State. And Ohio State, of course, is loaded every single year at all spots. And Kyle McCord wasn't bad. He just wasn't a superstar. And especially when you're coming off the heels of C.J. Stroud, the comparison of him to Kyle McCord is night and day, it seemed like. And that was what Ohio State was looking at in the transfer portal by bringing in Will Howard from Kansas State. We just need somebody that can be that superstar type of quarterback to lead this already very talented team to that next level of being a national champion.
And the thing is, like when Will Howard was at Kansas State got slept on heavily.
Well, they won the they beat TCU in the Big 12 championship game a couple years ago.
Exactly. I know they got smoked by Alabama right after, but that was Alabama being left out of the playoffs. So obviously,
right,
they're one of the only teams that will play their guys, and they had Bryce Young that year. So, but obviously with Will Howard, look, Kyle McCord was not great last year, like you said. It's tough being the guy after C.J. Stroud, and I think that's the big thing that we're not really talking about here is, like we said, Bo Nix, C.J. Stroud, a lot of these big-name guys that were at quarterback last year for these perennial teams, they're gone now. So these new guys coming in, these transfers, and replacing them, they have a lot of weight on their shoulders probably to keep it going and keep that train going. And I think with Ohio State, I think there's so much on the line this year in terms of it's not just win as many games as you can. It's not just beat Michigan, which you haven't done in forever, it feels like. You need to get to the playoff for one, and you need to go on a run because, since that first year of the college football playoff all the way back in 2014 when it took a miracle run from Cardale Jones, of all people, to win the title, you haven't really done anything since. Sure, you got beat by Clemson a few times. You got beat by Alabama in the COVID Mickey Mouse type season. But I do think, I feel like this is really a make or break year for Ryan Day and company.
For sure.
And it's Ohio State. They're always going to be great. The horseshoe's always going to be packed out. However, it's like at some point you got to put it all together and win a championship. Will Howard be that guy? I can definitely see why he's number one on this list.
Right.
I just don't know if he's going to be the guy that gets them there.
We'll certainly see. We'll come back and wrap up today's edition of The Extra Point. Gamecocks claiming gold in Paris. It's coming up next here on The Extra Point on the Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point, Tyler Head, Jack Veltri along with you on this Thursday morning. Lee Diffie on the call for NBC Sports. It's Quincy Hall, former Gamecock, winning the men's 400 gold medal. And if you did not get to see it, that call does not even do it justice because my man found an extra gear in that last 100 meters. And look, here's the thing. That is a race where you're going all out the entire time because it's so short. Where he found that extra speed in that last 100 meters to go from like fifth to first, I have no idea.
Dude, I'll tell you what, like watching that clip for the first time was so sick. Like you could tell like how exhausted he was and the amount of separation he's getting, each step he's taking is such a long stride. And I think that's ultimately what made the difference because you can tell like, he's exhausted. Like he's literally just throwing whatever he's got left in the tank out there. And the big strides I feel like definitely helped him. But man, that was so cool seeing that type of comeback he made there. That's like insane. And it's great to see that another U.S. guy is winning gold here. That was unbelievable.
It's not only U.S., which we all cheer for, obviously, but when you have the local connection of him being a former Gamecock as well, that just makes it, even cooler. And obviously, the Gamecock track program has a long and storied history, and that's just another feather in the cap of accolades that you can add to it. That who knows, maybe that's gonna be Nick Harbor one of these days.
Man, that would be cool. That would be cool. I think that would definitely be something we could see in the future, either way, with football or not. But man, like I'm telling you, there's been so many insane sports moments over the years. That might be probably like one of the top 5 coolest ones I've seen recently.
Well, we won't just stop there when it comes to accolades for the Gamecocks because yesterday the women's basketball team picks up the 88-74 win over Nigeria in the quarterfinals as they advance on with their 59th straight win in Olympic competition. Asia Wilson, 20 points, leading the women's team, also grabbing 11 rebounds as well as she continues to show off why she is definitively, without a doubt, probably the best women's basketball player on planet Earth.
That's why she's the GOAT. That's why she's the GOAT now. But she is, she's right in her prime too, right? 28 years old, a big body out there at 6'4". There's a reason why she is as good as she is ever since, we can remember. Like it goes even before this. It goes before the Aces. It goes before South Carolina. Like she is insane. And that whole team, like I think when you stack it up, like obviously it's not, as good as the men's, but like it's a really, really good team. And of course, led by Asia Wilson and company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And excited to see how that's going to continue to progress. Speaking of the Olympics, going to have the men's team in action later on today as they take on Serbia once again for the opportunity to play for the gold medal in the finals. You weren't in here yesterday. It was a pretty special day. It was Lee Corso's 89th birthday as the face of College Game Day gets another year older. We've had this conversation plenty of times before. Like, I don't know how much longer Lee Corso continue to do TV, but I hope with everything they keep him on there as long as possible, even if it's just for the one segment at the end where he puts on the headgear. I want Lee Corso as a part of my college football Saturdays as long as possible.
He's going until he dies easily. He's gonna go if he lives till he's 99. He will be there for sure. If it's just for that one segment, I think that's kind of. I'm interested to see what it looks like this year because obviously last year it was not like what it was years past where he would be on like for the first 10 minutes and then you don't see him again until like the 11:30 mark. So I think it's going to be like that, probably a little more so this year. And
sure.
Then, look, you got Nick Saban joining the fold this year. So it's like the replacement is in the waiting, it kind of feels like, except no one's going to replace the headgear.
Yeah. And I did before, he had a stroke and everything where he can't quite have the back and forth like he used to have. I did enjoy his perspective because he was a coach, and you have Desmond, you have Kirk, you have these guys on the panel. David Pollock used to be there. They're former players, and they give you one kind of perspective. But having a coach's ideas and thoughts on things is very helpful too. And again, I'm very excited to see Nick Saban and how he's going to play that part on there. But again, Lee Corso always has a spot on game day as long as he wants to be, certainly, and hopefully continues to do that for a very, very long time to come.
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't really imagine what the day is going to be like when he's not there anymore. But I can't see him being like, yeah, I'm going to retire and just go off into the sunset. I feel like he would have done that already. At this point, I just feel like he's in it for the rest of his life, and it's It's only 12 Saturday. Well, it's about a little more than that.
It's about 15-ish Saturdays, something along those lines.
It's about 4 to 5 months. So, and it's only once a week. So again, I think he's he's still always fired up, and I'm looking forward to seeing him back out there again in a few weeks in Ireland, right?
That's right.
Oh,
Absolutely.
man.
Week number 0. That's coming up very, very soon. That'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. Coming up next, it is the Garnet Trust Hour, brought to you by Krantz Heating and Cooling, myself and Wes Mitchell on your Thursday here on The Game.